Hi parents, it's me again with the second video. I just thought I would narrow in a little bit more on actually just modeling some problems for you, some what we call standard algorithm problems where it's just the numbers stacked. Before we get to that though, I wanted to just kind of say, I'm noticing that a lot of the students are actually getting the standard algorithm part, the part that I think most of you were worried about, like the actual regrouping and borrowing process. Most students are actually getting that. What I'm noticing that some are struggling with now is the fact that we are embedding subtraction and addition problems, regular standard algorithm problems, into word problems. So the fact that now they've got to read those 3 or 4 sentence word problems, decode the information presented to them, and to figure out how to accurately solve each one of those word problems is becoming the more tricky aspect to this whole objective unit that we're in. I'm going to narrow in on these two pieces right here. This addition sheet and subtraction sheet was sent home on that cheat sheet in the email and home. What I'm making sure that I try to focus on each and every day is looking at 1 or 2 of these words and what operation do they mean. So really noticing that the word altogether means to add, that the word how many more means to subtract. So really focusing on those words so that when it does come to a word problem, they're able to really pick out those words and effectively choose an operation to solve the problem correctly. So just a little food for thought. I'll move over here now. Please forgive me as I'm holding an iPad and trying to do this. I was going to go ahead and show you 4 problems, 2 subtraction, 2 addition, 2 each on the basis of that we have without regrouping, like when we don't need to carry over or when we don't need to borrow, and then of course the scary one, the one that does require regrouping, does require borrowing, does require in terms of addition to carry over. So I'll go ahead and start subtraction without regrouping. Regroup without meaning we do not need to go next door and borrow to any number. We have just the numbers that we need. We always start out when we look at a problem in class and we say, okay, remember our top number is always going to be our boss number. So this number up top is in charge. You always have to double check if those numbers are big enough on the top. So in this case, and we always start in the ones place, the 6 is bigger than the 4, the 8 is bigger than the 2, and the 5 is bigger than the 4, meaning I can take away 4 from 6, I can take away 2 from 8, and I can take away 4 from 5. So in this case, in this problem right here, no borrowing, no regrouping is necessary. It is just normal, everyday subtraction. 6 minus 4 is 2, 8 minus 2 is 6, and 5 minus 4 is 1. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, like I tell the kids. That they have no problem with normally. Now moving on to subtraction with regrouping. So with regrouping is kind of sort of the new term for borrowing. We interchangeably use those words. Also, for just food for thought, a fun little riddle that we use is in subtraction, if there is more on the floor, that's when we have to go next door and borrow. Or I also use the one, if the big number's on top, if this boss number is on top, he is in charge. If he is not big enough, we have to go next door and borrow and help him out. So noticing here, 3, because we always start in the ones place again, 3 is not bigger than 7. You cannot take 7 from 3. There is more on the floor, so we have to go next door. You always go to the next place value house to borrow. So we go ahead and cross out this 2. We teach with kids a reminder that it always becomes 1 less. If you're borrowing something, if you just took something, it becomes 1 less. 1 less than 2 is 1. Now, again, if you just borrowed, you took something. So we remind them that you were in the tens place. You're going to get a 10 rod or and exchange it for 10 ones, however you want to say it, and you bring it back over here. So there's our tens. And then, of course, all you're doing is making this number bigger. So you don't get rid of this number right here. We always keep it. I tell the kids to cross it out so that they don't think it's still just 3 minus 7, because guess what they will do? They will think that they can subtract from the bottom up, and we cannot subtract from the bottom up. So I tell them to just cross out that 3 so you don't get confused, and that 3 has become a 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. I hope that Miss Garza is right. Excuse me if that's wrong. It's been a long day. Now we move over to the tens place. Again, I tell them that 2 no longer exists. That 2 is a 1. 1 is not bigger than 4. We cannot take 4 from 1. So in this instances, we actually have to borrow again, double borrowing. We go over to the hundreds, we cross out that 6, and in it again, it becomes 1 less. So that becomes a 5. You bring what you borrowed back over. Now that new number is 11. 11 minus 4, I believe is 7, right? Sorry, I even have to think sometimes. And then 5 minus 2 is 3. Leaving your answer of 376, and it was actually, each number was corrected in each place value house. So that is subtraction with regrouping. I will send home this paper as well. I'm actually